何をこのひらめきを俺は信じる。イデオブルーアイズホワイトドラゴン。
From the very first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters to over 20 years later, Blue Eyes White Dragon remains one of the most popular, beloved, and iconic Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters of all time. Surprisingly, it also holds one of the most interesting and improbable rises to the peak of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! We've seen in the last decade. From the lows of being considered nothing more than a stereotypical, terrible anime deck to the peaks of the entire dueling world, Blue Eyes has seemingly done it all. In this video, I'll recap the entire almost 2-decade history of Blue Eyes White Dragon in the TCG and help you learn why this great beast was worthy of being Seto Kaiba's boss monster. But before I do, if you enjoy educational videos like this, hit the like button to let me know and also to help the channel grow. Without further ado, this is the rise and fall of Blue Eyes White Dragon. You know you're a true icon when an entire booster set is named after you, and that's exactly where we're going to start this story. In the very beginning of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, there was its first core booster set, which many to this day still revere, Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Quite frankly, I think you could call this entire video The Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon. LOB was first released in the TCG mid-March 2002, and of course, along with it, one of the faces of the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. Blue Eyes White Dragon was an ultra rare and was highly sought after, not just because of the fanfare relating to it being Seto Kaiba's boss monster in the anime, but in terms of raw power, it had the highest attack value in the entire booster set. In fact, Blue Eyes was so much stronger and objectively better than every other boss monster in the game at the time that until the next core set, Metal Raiders and Bandit Keith's Barrel Dragon were released, there really wasn't any legitimate reason to run other 2 tribute monsters in the game. That was, unless you were specifically looking to make your deck based around one of the other anime characters like maybe Yugi or Joey, in which you'd run other monsters like Red Eyes or Dark Magician. In the very early days of the DM era, Blue Eyes' raw strength reigned supreme, and many duelists chose dragons as their beatdown deck of choice. This was thanks to the very powerful Lord of D and Flute of Summoning Dragon combo that would allow you to summon up to 2 huge dragons from your hand without requiring any tributes. Yes, that same play that was used by Kaiba himself in the anime was a powerhouse in the real life game as well. All 3 cards were included in the original starter deck Kaiba, thus giving any player access to the play. If your opponent's field was open, you were only 800 life points off lethal. At the time, Yu-Gi-Oh! Barely had any complicated monster effects, so this play was downright prodigious if pulled off successfully. Sadly, Blue Eyes' place in the competitive scene would be short-lived. By Yu-Gi-Oh's 2nd year and the release of the 5th core booster set Labyrinth of Nightmare, the game had started to accrue a variety of powerful effect monsters such as Jinzo, Goblin Attack Force, and Bazoo the Soul Eater. These monsters were much more versatile and easier to get on the field when compared to Blue Eyes, and thus the Dragon Beatdown based deck became a thing of the past, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Moved more towards control based decks. For the rest of DM and the entirety of the GX era, Blue Eyes was seen as nothing more than a cool anime card that you'd never actually consider running if you wanted to win in real life. In my personal opinion, this was largely Konami's fault, as during DM, they never really supported Blue Eyes. Burst Stream of Destruction was released in Ancient Sanctuary, but that was only one singular card. Honestly, I don't think Konami ever intended for or expected Blue Eyes to become its own dedicated deck and strategy. I believe as much because when starter deck Kaiba Evolution was released in early 2004, it didn't really do anything to make Blue Eyes better or even viable. Heck, it didn't even include the 2-card combo of Lord of D and Flute of the Summoning Dragon that made his first starter deck Kaiba so iconic. For these reasons, Blue Eyes really wouldn't emerge again until 5Ds. Enter Hopeless Blue Eyes, the dragon-based beatdown deck that stayed true to the original spirit of Blue Eyes, but also added a level of lockdown and control that was never possible in the earliest days of the DM era. Hopeless Blue Eyes was an excellent combination of power and control. Cards like Blue Eyes White Dragon, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and the occasional 5-headed dragon all brought the hammer down on your your opponent, beating them into submission, and generally ending games quickly because of their high attack values, while cards like Light and Darkness Dragon, Royal Decree, and Royal Oppression would submit locks on your opponent. These cards were useful for taking away your opponent's best options when it came to defending themselves. In 2011, towards the end of 5Ds, Hopeless Blue Eyes achieved respectable success on the regional level, including a few top 8 finishes. During this time, while Storm of Ragnarok was the latest set, Hopeless Blue Eyes' main competitors were Plant Synchro, Six Samurai, and Gravekeepers, none of which had easy ways to deal with Light and Darkness Dragon, or the fact that Kwakimaru Drago stopped Gravekeepers from resolving Spy, or one of the best boss monsters in the game at the time, legendary Six Samurai Shien, from ever hitting the field. To be honest, the construct of this deck was fairly ahead of its time. Cards like Future Fusion and Red Eyes Darkness would soon become synonymous with the Chaos Dragon strategy during the Zexal era, but the Hopeless Blue Eyes build established them as powerhouses years earlier. As we moved into the Zexal era, Blue Eyes became a distant memory. The Hopeless version was completely replaced with the Chaos Dragon deck that would soon go on to win a YCS, and in doing so ensured Hopeless Blue Eyes' demise. Future Fusion was banned and Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon was limited to 1, so there really wasn't any point of trying to make the deck work anymore with so much lost power. But little did we know that as one door was closing around mid-2012, another would open the very next year. One thing you'll learn watching this video is while Blue Eyes White Dragon has no actual effect to keep it relevant over the course of history, the card has something quite possibly even better: legendary DNA. Blue Eyes White Dragon, simply put, hit the Yu-Gi-Oh! Genetic lottery. Dragons are one of the top 2 or 3 most supported types in this entire game, and the light attribute falls only second to dark in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. Heck, even level 8 has received generous amounts of support throughout the years. This time around, its dragon typing would become a huge benefit. With the release of the all-world powerful Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy booster set, the ridiculously powerful Dragon Rulers were released and immediately took over half of the competitive meta. As fortune would have it, 2 completely different decks using Blue Eyes would actually emerge as very legitimate competitive decks in the second half of 2013. First was the more successful Blue Eyes Rulers, which was basically a Dragon Ruler deck but with a Blue Eyes engine to give the deck far more speed. The deck used both Blue Eyes White Dragon and the White Stone of Legend as draw fodder, with the cards being useful for things like trade-in and card of consonants to burn through your deck at blazing speed. At the same time, if either card was in the graveyard, it could be used to summon a Dragon Ruler monster. On the other side of the spectrum was the far more interesting Blue Eyes Spellbook deck. This deck also used Blue Eyes largely as an engine, but different cards and for completely different reasons. Instead of the White Stone of Legend, this deck opted to run Maiden with Eyes of Blue. As a spellcaster, she not only had natural synergy with the spellbooks, but also when targeted with cards like Spellbook of Power or Spellbook of Wisdom, could summon a massive Blue Eyes White Dragon straight from the deck for free. She also allowed the deck to synchro summon and generally gave spellbooks more options. By the end of the next year, 2013, every Dragon Ruler card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Would either be banned or at limited status. This meant evolution and the creation of the far less powerful Mythic Rulers deck. It was a solid competitive deck, although nowhere near as powerful as the previous versions of Dragon Rulers, and once again, Blue Eyes would tag along for the ride for the same reasons that it saw play in the earlier builds. It's also worth noting that in late 2013, Konami actually gave Blue Eyes a full-on structure deck complete with a Synchro monster. It was completely unsuccessful at establishing Blue Eyes as a solid standalone archetype worth running, but it did give Blue Eyes a Synchro monster that saw competitive play. During the Arc V era, the real show began, and a once-in-a-lifetime ascension for Blue Eyes to the King of Games throne of Yu-Gi-Oh! This happened about halfway through the era, 2016, and for one very specific reason. During Arc V, Konami decided to release a new completely canon Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie based around the original DM characters. Seto Kaiba was to have multiple duels in this movie, and that would mean he would need new cards. Within 1 month, Konami released the booster set Shining Victories and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side of Dimensions movie pack. The cards released in these sets absolutely turbocharged the Blue Eyes strategy. New cards like Sage with Eyes of Blue, Dragon Spirit of White, and Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon Dragon all brought unique power and versatility to truly make Blue Eyes feel like not a supporting act, but the star of the show. In addition, a lot of those turbo draw cards from the past, things like Trade-In and Card of Continents, were not only still useful, but were better than ever. Konami was sending a clear signal during this time: we want this damn deck to be good, and good it was. As usual, this new pure Blue Eyes deck had the raw power that we had come to expect, but it also had something that the previous versions were lacking: spot removal for days. Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon could destroy any one of your opponent's monsters every single turn, while Dragon Spirit of White could banish back row and could be summoned from the deck for free with the use of the White Stone of Ancients. Best of all, this deck was incredibly adept at summoning horrifyingly powerful, strong rank 8 monsters as well. This led to Blue Eyes having a strong competitive run over the next several months, including Shunsuke Hiyama winning the 2016 Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. I should mention the finals was a duel versus Eric Christensen, who was also running Blue Eyes. So quite frankly, Blue Eyes didn't just win the 2016 World Championship, it dominated the event. Now I have to note that Blue Eyes benefited tremendously from the world's ban list that year, and a lot of decks were severely hurt by it, but nonetheless, it did win the event. Blue Eyes' success story during Arc V wouldn't just stop at Worlds, however. It would continue to have a great competitive run on the YCS and regional level for the remainder of 2016. In the first half of 2017, admittedly, Blue Eyes was starting to slow down significantly, but still showed some light promise with some regional top 8 finishes with various different builds. These builds included Galaxy Blue Eyes, Invoked Blue Eyes, and the Blue Eyes Chaos Max deck. By the end of 2017, as we entered the Vrains era, its momentum from Arc V was all but gone, and it seemed that Blue Eyes had once again faded into a distant memory. But unsurprisingly, it had one last act. Just as the great dragon rulers had revived Blue Eyes during Zexal, the incredibly powerful Guard Dragons did the same thing during Vrains. The Guard Dragons were a series of incredibly powerful Dragon Link monsters that single-handedly pulled the entire dragon type out of the grave and back into the meta spotlight. These Guard Dragons allow Blue Eyes players to easily summon some of the biggest and best dragon monsters in the game on a dime and with very little investment. Paired up with the very versatile Danger archetype and old friend Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, the Danger Blue Eyes deck tore things up on the regional level for a short while. Unlike the Blue Eyes deck before it, this deck aimed to summon as many powerful boss monsters from the extra deck as possible in its first turn and stop the opponent dead in their tracks before they even got started. The deck was fast, aggressive, and full of negation power. I'd say its emergence and light success is one of the more shocking things to come out of 2019. As it stands today, all these prior versions of Blue Eyes no longer see high-level competitive play, and thus neither does Blue Eyes White Dragon, but because of Konami's tendency to support Seto Kaiba as a character, and because Blue Eyes has that jackpot-winning DNA, I think it could be only a matter of time before we see it in the meta spotlight again. Anyways, that is the conclusion of our story. If you guys did enjoy this video and you like videos like this, give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comment section below what you thought. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already.
これが俺の未来だ。行け、ブルーアイズ。未来を切り開け、滅びのバーストストリーム。